everyone, welcome back. I'm Claire Davis for Mental Health Chats, and I'm very excited to welcome Benny back. How are you going, Benny?
Oh, I'm well, Claire. It's good to be back.
Yeah, great to have you back as well. And I'm just blown away by this series on eating disorders. We had 4 absolutely amazing guests, and you and I have done a lot of research to bring together this topic on facts and statistics, and it's really opened up my eyes with regards to eating disorders. So, Benny, do you want to start off with the stats in Australia with regards to
Yeah,
eating?
I can. I certainly wasn't across this topic, Claire, but it's been really interesting reading up on it. So, the number of people in Australia with an eating disorder at any given time is estimated to be around 913,000, or approximately 4% of the population.
Right. Yep.
And these people, 47% have binge eating disorder, BED. 12% have bulimia, 3% have anorexia nervosa, and then 38% have other eating disorders. And females comprise around 64% of people with an eating disorder.
So that's similar to the UK, and we're going to put the links in. My stats are from the Priory Foundation, which is a group of residencies for people with mental health conditions right across the UK, and we've got one here in Bristol. And their links said that between 1.25 and 3.4 million people in the UK are affected by an eating disorder. So I think that's slightly lower than yours, because we've got 65 million people in the UK. But a quarter of those are male, which is really, really interesting. And what they've also said that is the majority of eating disorders are during adolescence. However, there are children as young as 6 and adults in their 70s, which is really, really mind-boggling. I was just quite shocked with regards to that. So there are a few of the statistics, but Benny and I just said before we started recording that we could probably be here for about 5 hours talking about this, because we've found out so much information. So what Benny just mentioned, binge eating disorder, which is the eating disorder that Vicky was talking about. Hope was talking about anorexia nervosa, which is the one that we've probably all grown up to understand and know, and that is where people keep their weight as low as possible through not eating and exercise. Then Alex was talking about bulimia nervosa, which is controlling your weight through being sick or taking laxatives afterwards. Then we've mentioned binge eating, and Alex also mentioned orthorexia, which actually it's yet to be recognized as a disorder. However, it's the modern eating disorder, which is eliminating certain food groups and just clean eating, only clean eating, and being quite obsessed with that. So there are a few other disorders, aren't there, Benny? Do you want to mention the names of those?
Yeah. Well, one that I'd never heard of, it's I'm not sure how you pronounce it, Claire. Pica?
Yeah, I think it's Pica or Pica. I'm not sure myself.
Yeah, and like that one, people who regularly and persistently eat non-food substances like chalk, soap, paper, for more than a month. They eat items with no nutritional value like ice. It's and they do that as a coping mechanism or a learned behaviour, for example. And then
there's purging. Sorry, were you just going to say that?
Yeah, purging disorder, and that's not tied to binge eating. It's a self-induced vomiting, misuse of laxatives, fasting, excessive exercise. It's not overly well known, but it's often categorised in that other eating disorder category. And its difference with bulimia is that compulsion to binge eat. There's a compulsion to binge eat with bulimia, but not necessarily so with purging disorder.
Yeah.
And it's a cycle of binge eating followed by purging, bringing it back up again, or well, you know, out wherever it comes out. Yeah, so that was, and then there's night eating syndrome. That's people who wake up and eat in the middle of the night, or eat a lot before they go to bed after they've had dinner. So they're slotting in another meal. So they were just some of the other ones that I read up.
Yeah, which is really, really interesting. And the other thing that I found really interesting, we're sort of shuffling lots of paper here because there's so much to talk about, is the actual signs. And Hope went into a little bit of detail on the signs, but I would like to just mention Hope's book. I've just finished reading Hope's book. I bought it straight after I interviewed her. Stand Tall Little Girl. It is such an eye-opener for me. I was quite taken aback with her honesty. So well done, Hope. Her family's honesty, her friends' honesty, those people who supported it, and how she actually coped through her eating disorder. She's now 30 or 31, but she's had relapses. And she actually had a relapse just 2 years ago before writing the final section of the book, which I just loved your honesty, Hope. And she's now working, she's talking at organizations, she's talking in schools to help other people, because she was actually working in London when she had a relapse in recruitment. And she mentions the name of the recruitment company, and nobody knew, nobody spotted the signs. So spotting the signs is quite a big thing. And one thing Hope mentions is it's not just a quick weight loss, it's actually before the weight loss. It's noticing people who are suddenly excessively exercising out of control, but also for her, she was watching every time her mother cooked, watching everything that went into the meal, counting the calories and excessively looking at that, which I found absolutely amazing in the book to read about. It was really, really interesting. But other signs that are mentioned, and Hope mentions them as well, are things like avoiding eating with others. She didn't want to go out, didn't feel comfortable, and wearing baggy clothes as well, going to the bathroom lots. Hope mentions that in her book. She went back to her family home after being admitted to hospital for over a year, and there was still the stains on the carpet in her bedroom because she went to the bathroom or she was making herself sick in her bedroom. So it was such an eye-opener for me, and I do recommend that anybody with a teenage child or anybody who's interested in mental health conditions reads the book, because it is so honest, and it really, really did, as I've said, opened up my eyes to that. So have you got anything else on the signs, Ben?
Yeah. Look, I found they sort of a lot of the things that you read, Claire, they break it in two areas: physical signs and emotional signs. And the physical signs, you mentioned some of them, but someone who may have an eating disorder, a person that may have an eating disorder may exhibit weight changes, fluctuations in weight, or rapid weight loss, disturbed menstrual cycle, loss or disrupted periods, dizziness, feeling lightheaded or faint, fatigue, constantly feeling tired, being cold, sensitivity to cold weather, inability to concentrate or think rationally. They're some of the physical ones. And then the emotional signs: obsession with weight, preoccupation with weight, body appearance or food, which you just mentioned, low self-esteem, feelings of low self-worth or negative body image. A few of your guests mentioned that. Negative emotions, anxiety, depression, feeling that life is out of control. Mealtime anxiety, feeling anxious, upset or guilty in relation to food. And the last one is mood changes, depression or anxiety, moodiness and or irritability.
And Alex mentioned, he was so honest as well, where he felt the school that he went to, trying to fit in, may have been the reasons of bringing his on in his late teens. Social media and media, where, you know, it's all about how you look on the outside, but for him, he wasn't happy on the inside.
Yeah.
And Hope mentions that as well, with regards to being sexually assaulted. And in her book, she said she's not sure if that could have been a cause of it with her so low self-worth. But, you know, she goes through the book of her recovery of when she had low time. So her grandmother died. So that year was the year she had a relapse, which is really sad, but her emotions weren't right. They weren't, she wasn't emotionally fit. So it's very, very interesting how this does, you know, coincide with your emotions. And that's what Alex and Hope went through in detail. And I think one of the most interesting studies that I've actually read, and I've sent it through to you, Benny, and I'm going to put the link in because I'm quite blown away by this study. And this is all about recovery. And I think Hope outlines in her book about recovery how long it's taken. And in her book, she said, I was reminded that people do get better from eating disorders. About 40% of people who have had an eating disorder never think about it again. Amazingly, only 15% of people are unable to fight it off and stay stuck with their disorder. And that goes with some statistics from the Priory Foundation, where it says eating disorders have the highest mortality rates amongst psychiatric disorders.
Yeah.
And that quite shocked me. And I was talking to a friend whose daughter actually works at the Priory Foundation, and she said she was shocked as to how many of them do die. And Hope mentions in her book that they actually said to her when she went into hospital, 1 in 4 people die of eating disorders. And then one of the 4 that she was in the room with did end up dying a few years later. So mortality is a lot higher than I realized.
Because there's some big ticket psychiatric disorders in there that is compared with, Claire. We're talking about comparisons with anxiety, depression, bipolar, dementia, schizophrenia, and eating disorders have the highest mortality rate amongst all those.
It's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It is. So the last thing that we want to, Benny and I would like to bring up is a study that was done in 1945 called the Minnesota Starvation Study, and it's opened up my eyes. So basically these men were healthy men. They were eating 3,200 calories a day, and they decided to do a study and reduce the calories. So do you want to explain why they reduced their calorie, why they did the study, Benny, to everyone?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, well, they were, a lot of these guys were conscientious objectors that weren't prepared to go to war and fight. And they wanted to contribute to the war effort. So it was set up so that they wanted to find out how they knew that there was a lot of starvation in Europe, and they wanted to figure out how that can be best managed. So, you know, to have high survival rates when people have been through periods of severe starvation. So these guys put themselves up to become part of the experiment and to determine how starvation affected the human body. And
there were 36 of them. So for the first 3 months, they ate 3,200 calories. And then for the next 6 months, they ate 1,570 calories per day this is. But what amazed me, these men, before going into the study, didn't have an eating disorder. It wasn't for eating disorders, this study. However, they stated and they realized the physical effects and psychological effects of depriving your body of calories. And they halved their calories, but 1,570 calories a day. That's what a lot of people just eat nowadays. So The physical effects were abnormally being thin and weak, lower body temperatures, decreased heart rate, and reduced sex drive. The psychological effects, and this is really correlating with what Hope says in her book and from her interview: food obsession, depression, irritability, and fatigue. And I just find that so eye-opening. This study was, 70 years ago, but how incredible is that, that, the effects are really, really huge psychologically and physically. And this is what now has developed over years into eating disorders. So is there anything else you got out of the study, Benny, that was of interest?
Oh, no, I just think over time, a lot of things don't change. And, a lot of the psychological impacts that you described then, Claire, they're equally relevant now for people with eating disorders. So the effects of starvation, which is one of the disorders. Effectively starving yourself so you don't gain weight. That experiment really informed things to come.
Definitely. And to be happy on the outside, we have to be happy on the inside, and that's what our four guests said. Laura was really, really interesting the way she said, it's all this weight loss. We're all worried about weight loss all the time, but it's not really healthy. And so often we go on this diet. Her words were, we should be looking at wellness, not dieting. So that was really powerful as well. So all four speakers were really, really powerful.
I just had one there from Alex, and I think you mentioned it before. People often try to fix internal issues, things within, by modifying their external appearance. Making sure that they physically look good. But he made the comment he didn't want to be remembered for the guy that looked good when he walked into the room. He wanted to be remembered wanted people to remember him as the guy that brought happiness and joy to the room, and he was that funny guy, and not because he was looked pretty fit and muscly type thing. And I thought that was
great.
Life's too short to live like that. And he reassessed his values and found other things in life that made him happy.
He did,
and just trying to look good.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So that was such an interesting series. So thank you, Benny, for being a part of it and bringing that together. There's so much information. So we've got quite a few links that we're going to add. So our next series is very interesting as well. We've done suicide, and I've had a few people say that they would be interested to hear about suicide survivors. So our next guest is from the US, and her name is 𝗂𝗄𝗃, and she's going to talk about being a suicide survivor. So thank you, Benny, and I look forward to seeing you next time.
Thanks, Claire.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.